Alright everybody, how y'all doing? It's been a bit since I did an update. It's been a little bit busy between work, college, and family and whatnot. Um, but fortunately, it's been pretty busy in the Lantern Discord as well, thanks to the Rhystic Studies video. Excellent video, I think, by the way. That's probably so far the best video I've seen on the history of the deck. I'm glad to see that Zero Down finally got the credit he was due for coming up with the idea so many years ago. Um, yeah, thanks a lot to I think it's Sam over at Rhystic Studies. After watching the video, I definitely I signed up for the Patreon, um, and yeah, very happy with it. So newest news on Lantern. First, I guess I'll go over the spreadsheet. I did some updates to the spreadsheet. Now it automatically sorts all the data for us. Um, here we go. So this is the current spreadsheet. And there's going to be an update, by the way, working on that. And we're going to start using that when Modern Horizons 3 drops. So, but now I did a back end change so that it automatically sorts all of this data for us. Um, there's overall rankings, and then there's going to be, and then there's matchup specific rankings. So now you can click a little drop down box, select whatever matchup you want to go to. So let's say, I don't know, it's on burn right now. I think domain zoo, yeah. Actually, just played against that, and so it'll think for a second, and then it'll update and provide the data for the cards that perform best against domain zoo. There, yep. And then it's also set up so you can look at individual pilot statistics. So this one's on Luke's statistics. Are the cards that perform best for Luke. And it shows the sample size as well. Now all of these are weighted for sample size, and I'll go through again how this is determined. Um, but yeah, and then you can here's all the people who have data in there. Some of them, I manually put the data in there for them. Others are contributors from the Lantern Discord who are actively involved in trying to um, improve the deck. And then matchup data. It shows the matchup data for the games and the matches. And so I filtered it so that it only does the positives and negatives for if we have at least 10 games of data. And if you go to the matchup statistics, let's see down here somewhere, it'll actually have the standard, the variance, standard deviation, confidence intervals, and whatnot as well. And you can see highlighted in green are the ones that are over 10 games of data. Let's see. Go back to the dashboard. So you can see we have trouble with Amulet Titan, Mono Blue Tron, Grixis Control, that's historically been that way, and Mono Green Tron. Mill has been getting steadily better because we figured out how to a great sideboard strategy against it. See, Yawgmoth has also been steadily getting better because we figured out a good sideboard strategy against it, and main deck really. Let's see, creativity is still rough. It's very, very tight. I had a recent video where it showed that I punted because I conceded too early. Four color control is basically it's the same thing as Omnath, Money Pile. That one's also tough because they have the Ren and Six and all that. But yeah, a lot of this other stuff is pretty cake. Cascade Beans doesn't really exist anymore, but it was fun while it lasted for us. But anyways, this is the current spreadsheet. So the new spreadsheet that's going to come about after Modern Horizons 3, I'm going to have it set up so that you can compare different types of Lantern decks. So you can see statistics for each different type of lantern deck, like the black-green, black-red, the Obzon, Whir, or whatever. And then you can see the cards ranked against each other, the matchup for the cards ranked against each other. You can see the matchup statistics. You can see which version works better in which metagame. And then you'll probably see like some pilots prefer some builds. Like I prefer the black-green build. There is another build that I've been messing around with thanks to it was an idea that was put out by one of the other people in the Lantern Discord, and I'll get to that. We still have the additional data points here for all the specific things we want to look at, like how win rates when we have a lantern no rocks, or however many lands in the opening hand, and whatnot. Okay. Change log. Oh yeah, still have the binomial distribution method for weighing it, and it turns out that this usually matches 1-for-1, which with the weighting method that I already do. Let's see. I think. Oh yeah. So weighted data trends. Real quick, I'll go over one more time how this is determined. So what happens is we find the win percentage when you have 0 of something in the opening hand, and then the win percentage when you have 1 in the opening hand. So, for example, Assassin's Trophy. With none in the opening hand, out of all the thousand some odd games we have now, it's 58.33. With 1 in the opening hand, it goes up to 66.67. Now, and then so that means it goes up by 8.33% win rate when you have 1 in the opening hand. However, of course, the sample sizes are very different among all these cards. So in order to account for that, we multiply this value, the change or the delta, by a weight, or we weigh the data for that sample size. So I actually just changed this recently. What I'd been doing is there were 2 ways that I did it historically. And so the one way is you just take, so for example, we'll go back to Assassin's Trophy. 135 games, and actually it's all the games with Assassin's Trophy. Divided, and it's the ratio of games with Assassin's Trophy with respect to the total number of games. So 1,008 games. So 135 plus the handful of other ones out of 1,008 games. So it was in. Was that? Oh, it's not actually in 4.29%, but it's in some odd. It's a certain percentage. I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but that's the way I normally did it. And then when I first started working on this, like a decade ago or so, I was squaring this ratio so that the smaller sample sizes had a much smaller weight, and the larger sample sizes had a relatively much larger weight to really account for that sample size difference. And then you just multiply these together and you get this. So what I found was doing the ratio. I still had some weird things with the sample size, where smaller sample sizes, like a 100% or whatever, like this one right here, going abrupt decay, yeah, from 59.19 to 100%. That's a massive change, and the weight with a smaller total number of games didn't really account for the sample size as much as I'd like to, because the sample size of total games wasn't great. So I used, and if I square it, excuse me, then yeah, it does a lot more, but then you don't really get a whole lot of data very quickly. So the midpoint is I mean, it's not very scientific, I'll admit, but the midpoint is, or the trait, what's the word? Um, the balance between that, I guess, is I took the golden ratio as an exponent instead, and then that's what I ended up with for here. So the results now, it's the ratio of the sample size to total number of games to the power of the golden ratio. And all right, all of this is back end stuff. You don't really have to worry about it. All the stuff with the colors on it are what matter, and the dashboard. Um, okay, so and this is all going to change. Like I said, I'm going to make the new spreadsheet soon and get it all set up, get it ready to go for the community for when Modern Horizons 3 drops. So the next thing to talk about. So my current preferred version of Lantern is this one, traditional. Excuse me. Um, the big changes were I dropped down to 2 stirrings. The data on stirrings is not great. Actually, let's go look at that. Yeah, data on stirrings is not great. Um, so, and you can actually look on the spreadsheet as well. Excuse me. On the weighted data trends, it also does diminishing returns. So I found that Profane Tutor is better than Ancient Stirrings. It's also, it's not a bad card, but it is still in the negatives. But Stirrings is much worse in the negatives. Um, so Tutor is better, but I found that having the diminishing returns of Tutor, having 2 Tutors is worse than having 1 Stirrings, or having 1 Tutor and 1 Stirrings. So I got down to 3 Tutors and 2 Stirrings in my list. Duress over Thoughtseize. That should make pretty plain sense. The creatures that we have to worry about that cost 3 or less fall into, really, it's Ragavan. And Bowmasters, it'll ping us, but we don't draw a whole heck of a lot of cards. There's Mish's Bobble. They'll get some, triggers off of that, I guess. But the the big thing there is we want to be able to get Ring, Leyline Binding, Karn the Great Creator, Force of Vigor, stuff like that out of the opponent's hand. And getting an Inquisition and pulling a Ragavan out of the opponent's hand only works if we're on the play and we have the Black Source and we have Inquisition. And Thoughtseize will do just as well there anyways. So it looks like Duress is probably going to be better. And I think, what's the data show on that one? Yeah. We can see Duress is way up here. I don't know where Inquisition is. It's somewhere down here. I don't know. But it's lower, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't even see it. So I would highly advise, if you're playing in a competitive meta, the current meta at least, it might change after Modern Horizons 3, who knows. Duress seems to be the better option. Assassin's Trophy, because seems to be generally the best removal we have access to. Most of the other stuff hasn't changed too much in some time. I did change the mana base some. I used the MTG on curve to try to improve the mana base a bit. I'm still running the fetches. Those have been great. 1 Overgrown Tomb, I hardly ever fetch that. I'm almost always just fetching straight basics first and then the tomb. I'm still on 4 Gardens, 4 Sagas, of course. So the big changes here are the Fomori Vault and the Darkboar pathway. I'm back on 1 pathway to try to help the mana base a little bit. The Fomori Vault has been just absolutely incredible. I have been really liking this card. It's basically, if we have this and 3 other lands, it's like a stirrings every single turn to get us more than just an artifact or a land. It gets us anything really. So later in the game, when we're drawing like discard spells or something, we can pitch those to the vault, and we can go, get something better like another bridge, or we can get more mill rocks or whatever. So yeah, vault has been incredible. So for the sideboard, most of this is still the same as the last video, if I'm not mistaken. The only thing that's changed is I've gone to Collective Brutality instead of ley lines, and that was thanks to the suggestion of somebody in the Discord. I was trying to do the fetch mana base with Godless Shrines and whatnot to make it so that if I draw a ley line, I can cast it. But somebody mentioned, maybe we should just go back to Collective Brutality instead. And I was like, you know what, maybe they're right. So I've been trying it, and so far it's been working great, just amazingly well. In fact, one of the videos that I'm going to upload tonight is a game where I, successfully did a Collective Brutality, escalated all modes, and just easily won the game. Yeah. So that's my favored traditional Lantern list that I'm running right now. And then the other list that I want to talk about is one that somebody who goes by Arkinoid in the Discord, he posted something real funny. Actually, I wish I had gotten a screenshot of it, but I'll probably pin it in the Discord because it was so funny. But anyways, the idea of running Blood Moon and going black-red. And of course, the idea being that you're disrupting their deck even more, cutting off more cards from the opponent being able to use even more cards. So still on 3 Profane Tutor in this build, but now I don't have Ancient Stirring. So that is a big difference that worries me a little bit, but generally, still 3 Duress, 4 Thoughtseize. Instead of Assassin's Trophy, it's Molten Collapse. Again, not my idea. It was their idea in the Discord, and I was like, that's real smart. It takes care of Shieldred and Karn and, whatever. But we, the Descend, it is really easy for us to get the Descend trigger, or Descend proc, or whatever you call it. Thanks to Mishra's Baubles, we can sack a Lantern if we need to. We can discard like a permanent to Cookbook. We can use a fetch land. We have so many ways to proc that Descend that almost, I want to say from memory, almost every single time I've cast Molten Collapse, I've gotten both modes if there was a target. Much of the rest of this is the same. And then the mana base is very similar to the black-green, except you'll notice there's no sagas. I did try sagas with this, but I kept finding that I was either very close to losing or I was losing because the Blood Moon interaction with saga and the saga sacrificing itself, and then since now I'm running 7 3-mana spells, it's real hard to be able to empty my hand for bridge to actually work. So I cut the sagas. I know that sounds crazy, but other people are still running them and still testing it, so they might be onto something. Maybe they're correct, and maybe this is not the correct build. This is just the one that I've been doing. Other than that, it looks very, very similar. I'm still running 4 Gardens because you can still use those, and I'm only running 1 Fomori Vault in this build, but I still absolutely would run a Fomori Vault. You'll see that I'm running a basic mountain in here, which probably seems kind of weird, considering Blood Moon I'm going to have mountains anyways. And the reason for that is I found that when I would fetch, I would always fetch a basic swamp, and then a lot of times I would just need a red, and the only red that I could fetch was the Blood Crypt, which sucked. So I included the one mountain so I can also fetch a mountain if I need to and not take excess damage. And it's been working great. Sideboard here, it's again very, very similar to the black green, except the big differences here are I'm running Stone Brain instead of Necromentia. The reasoning is that, well, there's two reasons. One, Stone Brain is easier to cast when we have a Blood Moon out. I don't have to worry about the 2 black mana as much. And because Stone Brain, you can get basic lands out of your opponent's deck. So if you play the Moon, you can Stone Brain their basic lands, and then they're just completely cut off if everything works right. It's a corner case, but it's one that, in combination with being able to cast it under Moon easier, seems worth it. Second thing is Feed the Swarm. The reason for that is for cards like Lantern of Sanctity and Stony Silence. So it is unfortunate you take the damage for like Leyline of Sanctity. I didn't plan on using this for Leyline Binding, but I figure if you have a Moon out, it's going to be hard for the opponent to cast Binding anyways. So, but Feed the Swarm. It's also useful against Sagas, but again, so is Blood Moon. So it's mostly there for Leyline of Sanctity because, oh yeah, you'll notice with this build. Oh wait, no, I went up to 6. Yeah. Yeah, kind of need to be able to target the opponent if we can. So that actually happened in a game today. I was playing against Martyr Proc on one of the other computers we have, and I was able to kill their Leyline of Sanctity and then establish a pretty solid lock from there. Let's see. Oh, in Gemstone Caverns. So this one is largely because being able to, if you're on the draw, like I only sight it in when we're on the draw. But yeah, being able to bring this in on the draw, and then so your turn 1, you have 2 mana. So you do like a discard spell and something. Then your turn 2, you play a Blood Moon, and a lot of times the opponent just, they're locked out from that, and you can just proceed as normal. But I do have a lot of hopes for this type of build. I think that so a lot of our hardest matchups again are, like I showed on that spreadsheet, Tron, Amulet Titan, and the Omnath piles. And with the Blood Moon, I figured that this might help with those 3 matchups in particular. So if those 3 decks continue to be among the top decks in the metagame, normally Scam's already a pretty good matchup. Thanks to Profane Tutor, we can if they discard a bridge or scam a bridge out of our hand, we can tutor for a bridge, and we have the kill spells for their creatures, and we have the Thoughtseize and for their own stuff. And we can Cage is pretty good against the scam stuff if we go first. So yeah, scam's not too terrible. And once you land a bridge, it's not too terribly hard. You can just kill their stuff. Oh yeah, Ethergrid. I forgot to mention that. Ethergrid on the side. Sam mentions that in the Rhystic Studies video. The reason I am including one Ethergrid here is there are some cases where we're just going to have to try to kill our opponent's stuff, like legitimately kill their stuff. It is useful against, like if it's another weapon against a Karn the Great Creator, we can just kill the Karn, and if we don't have a Molten Collapse, or we can just close out the game much faster. But I really only sighted in for those sorts of matchups, like the grindier matchups. Yeah, I think that's about it for this list. Feel free to join the Discord. We have a ton of good discussion. Everybody's pretty open to new ideas, as long as you're willing to test the very ideas that you promote and not come in and be like, hey guys, we should be doing this. I mean, we've already tested quite a bunch of stuff together between the large group of us who are still very active in trying to make the deck, um, or keep the deck competitive. Um, and uh, yeah, we try to keep it respectful in there. It's good stuff. And unfortunately, the deck isn't very expensive either. It's 113 for this version, 172 for my traditional on um, MTGO. And then if you look at the prices for a tabletop, that's like half the price of a lot of the decks, and we beat a lot of the tier 1 decks pretty easily. So, um, I mean, again, the only ones we have to worry about, Tron apparently has a terrible matchup against a lot of stuff. For some reason, people keep playing it even though it has a less than 50% win rate against the metagame in general, but Lantern seems to have a positive win rate against the metagame in general. The only real like top tier deck that we have the most problem with is Amulet, but both of these versions are designed specifically to fight that. In fact, this version, my traditional, the Amulet matchup has gotten much better thanks to the Terra Sunders, Damping Spheres, and the Necromenches. In fact, I think I have a video of me playing against. Yeah, I need to record that. I have a video. I think I 2-0'd Amulet with this list. Well, a similar list. I think I was only running one from Ori Vault at the time. But yeah, I'll try to upload that video here soon too. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and get to recording the games and upload those. Again, feel free to join the Discord and yeah, let's do this thing.